Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. Hey, thanks for joining me here again. We are on my living room floor. We've talked about some books here before. We're going to talk about some books again today. Although today, instead of talking about some books I've really enjoyed, just want to go over a few of the many, unfortunately, that I have not finished. Today I'm going over 5 books that are DNF if you're in the reading world, marking down your progress on Goodreads or another app. Perhaps you'd be familiar with the term DNF, did not finish. I want to get straight into them because I know that in this day and age our attention span is a little bit shot and it's hard to focus for too long with all the reels and Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, whatever. So let's just get right to it. There's no particular order for these 5. They're not ranked from worst to best or best to worst that I did not finish. And also, just really quickly, sorry I said I'd get right to it. I do want to say, just because I did not finish them does not mean that they are by any means really bad books. They just did not resonate with me. And perhaps I just wasn't ready to read them yet. Maybe I'll try them again in a couple of years or a couple of months even, but we are finite creatures on this planet for so long, and there are thousands upon thousands of books. So we should feel more than able to read books that we actually like, that resonate with us, that leave us wanting to come back for more. So just because I don't like these books, don't mean necessarily that they are bad books. All right, let's get right to it. Number 1 here. Also, I'm using my tablet because I don't have these books, because I either got them from the library because I wasn't sure, or I probably just threw them away. The first one here is Aurora Rising. All right, this is a young adult sci-fi novel, okay? And it's actually a trilogy, I believe. There are 3 of these altogether. Aurora Rising. This was the first book I'd ever read that was written by 2 different people, and that is Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. Okay, so this was the first book, Aurora Rising. I thought it started out really strong. It's got some great characters. It's got a cool setting. There's different alien species as well, humanoid aliens, kind of all coexisting together. But then there's obviously something going on with one of the superpowers. I'm trying to remember now. It's been at least a couple of years. I thought it was really well done. I liked the pacing of it. The thing for me that really got to me with this is that there was a ragtag team of 4 to 5 teenage alien species, and every other chapter they were switching off to different POVs from one to the other, and there was a lot of like pent up kind of flirty, like romantic feelings towards pretty much every crew member. So there was at least a paragraph, if not more, from each of the crew members' perspectives, like, oh, I really like this guy and I want to kiss him and I want to do this and have his babies. And the next chapter, this girl's like, oh, I really like this girl and I think, man, she looks really good in this lighting and I love the way that her sweat is glistening in the vapors of the flux capacitor. So for me personally, I think it was just a little repetitive, kind of just beating a dead horse with this person's liking this person and this person likes the other person and this guy likes that guy. It was a little much. I didn't know it was going to have so much kind of romantic theme, chemistry to it. I thought it was more so like just a bunch of teenager humans and aliens on this ship stopping the bad guys or stopping this plot that was going on. So I did not finish it. I gave up probably around 150 pages, and I ended up probably throwing that book out just because I was so sick of this trope of every teenager just wants to, forgive the language, but just wants to hump whatever's in front of them. Like, that's not exactly true. So that was my first one. I gave it up. I probably won't won't get into that series again, but it looked cool. I really liked the cover on it. Really well done covers. And yeah, Aurora Rising was the first one out of 5 today that I did not finish. The next book is a fantasy book. It is kind of like a humble origin story, like farm boy becomes the hero, and there's an epic quest that they have to go on that is none other than Terry Goodkind's Wizard's First Rule. All right, so this book I actually read probably maybe about a third of it in 2015. I just finished getting back into reading, getting into fantasy. That was kind of what got me back into reading, because growing up, I read a few books in middle school, but through the length of high school and my first year in college, I hadn't read anything. And so I'll make a video about kind of my experience getting back into reading. But this was the second book that I read after finishing. Actually, I don't think I had finished it yet, but I was reading it alongside of a book I really enjoyed, which was Patrick Rothfuss's The Name of the Wind. So this was given to me by a friend. They said they enjoyed it, and so I was reading it. And I think it had some really good beginnings there. However, the pacing felt a little odd to me. It seemed like, okay, the characters are doing this, and now they run into this, and now there's this happening, and they have to fight these things, and now this is happening. There just wasn't a lot of time for the book to breathe, for these characters to develop and have more banter with each other, because early on they went on this quest and they're just going from one thing to the next. Like, it was action on top of action on top of action. And when you have that, it just becomes monotonous and not as, it's just not as exciting when it's one thing to the next, right? Like, oh, that's pretty cool. Now they have to top something over here, and they just have to get more and more action heavy. So for this, it was just like the same kind of tone of action all across the board. It wasn't like one that was a little more exciting or less exciting. It was just this kind of deadpan, if you can say that, of excitingness that I found just a little repetitive, as well as something that did not resonate with me very much was when, excuse me, it might not have been that far into it, you get to, it changes POVs to the antagonist. Like, there were some odd things with some childhood, like abusing, I think this main antagonist was abusing children, and it was just a little creepy. There were some sexual abuse kind of vibes going on with it, and that just kind of did not resonate with me very well. I just found that to be a little over the top and unnecessary to have in the book. And then even afterward, I found out that, Terry Goodkind, there were a lot of people in the fantasy genre that did not like him very much as a fantasy author. I guess he was not very cordial to a few people that he had working for him in regard to cover art designs for his books. And he just wasn't the best person. I know there's separating the art from the artist, but I gave up with this one probably about a third of the way through. So my second book was Wizard's First Rule. Gave that up. A few years later, I was going to be traveling across the United States, and I was going to be on a plane for a few hours, and I thought, okay, I need to get a good book. I'm going to be staying with some friends as well. So I picked up The Goblin Emperor by Catherine Addison. This is a great story just about this kind of half elf, I think, half goblin. Maya, I believe, was his name. And he inherits this whole empire, okay? So truly from humble beginnings, he has to learn about court intrigue. He has to learn about running a kingdom and all these little things. It's almost like really a pioneer, it feels like, for slice of life type fantasy books. They are a dime a dozen now. Like, really, if you go back to it a little after, this was probably the first one, because several years later it was when Legends and Lattes came out, and that really sparked it. But this one, I'd say, would also spark it, because there's not tons of action. There's not a lot really going on, in my opinion, from what I read. That really just is like, oh yes, the world is ending, this guy needs to save it. There's a prophecy, and there's all these quests and huge battles. It's really him adjusting to his life in court. And so I finished it probably about, again, a third of the way through. And this is one that I think I might actually come back to, okay? Because I liked where it was going, but perhaps the season of life I was in, where I was traveling and with some friends and staying at their place, so there wasn't a whole lot of good time to really focus on reading, so when I did read, I wasn't necessarily retaining and understanding as much. So this one, it was a little dull, okay, for my liking. But again, perhaps that's just for the season of life I was in. I'd like to explore it again in the future. Another thing that I found very tedious was having to flip back to a glossary because, I think it was great that Catherine Addison came up with all these different terms for things in the city and different names and pronunciations. So I found I was frequently flipping back to this index to understand like how to say someone's name or what this kind of title of a person was, what his rank was, what that means. And that was also breaking up my flow of reading, and I wasn't able to fully immerse myself in the world as I would have liked to. Okay, so far we had Aurora Rising, Wizard's First Rule, The Goblin Emperor. Number 4 is going to be controversial, as well as the next one is also. Okay, so number 4 is Joe Abercrombie's Best Served Cold. Whew, Logan, what are you doing? Everything Joe writes is just magical. It's wonderful. It's engaging. It keeps you going until you're all out and you're wondering, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I haven't paid my bills in 3 months. My goldfish starved to death. I haven't left this couch in 3 years. I really, really enjoyed his trilogy. Let's see, is it the Wizard's First Rule? No, I'm probably getting it mixed up. No, that's Terry Goodkind. Whoops. First Law. Excuse me. I'm thinking of DNF books. First Law trilogy was fantastic. I ate that up like very quickly. I'm trying to think of a good analogy, but I can't think of anything. This one, however, I couldn't get into it. And maybe it's because I was too quickly to transition from that trilogy straight into this. I had spent so many hours with this cast of incredible characters, and they were all new characters, so I had to go back to square one. Obviously, without spoilers, there are some reoccurring characters that do pop up here and there. But this one, I just couldn't get into it. And for me, I think the time that I was in, I was kind of just done with some of the more grotesque scenes. In the First Law, there were scenes that I'd have to skip just because I didn't want to read about them, mostly some of the torture chamber scenes. This one started off really bloody. The first couple of chapters were really intense. I had a good friend say that it's not as intense as that as the book goes on, but I found that it was really just appalling for me to want to continue to read that. And I tried to get into it. I listened to the audiobook a little bit as well. I let just too much time lapse, so I forgot some of the story. And then, of course, I got it from the library, so my book was returned. And then when I got the book again, I was like, what chapter was I on? So I'd skip ahead and say, I don't even remember what's going on. So, Best Served Cold, I've heard, is a fantastic tale. It's a story of revenge and redemption. To me, it's just like an R-rated version of The Count of Monte Cristo, but maybe not as good, not as well done, and from a female POV, which is wonderful. But I just couldn't get into it. So maybe I'll finish this one, but I'm not gonna beat myself up about it if I don't. I'd love to return to the Joe Abercrombie verse. Probably start with his second trilogy. If I do any of the standalones, I might try Heroes, because I hear that's a really good one, as well as Red Country is kind of like a Western vibe, though I think that is supposed to be the least favorite of the 3 standalones. Okay, so my 5th and final DNF book that I have not finished. This is one that, again, I hope to get back to it at some point, but it is none other than The Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss. Wow, this guy can really write a good book. Some people love him, some people don't like his books. That's okay. Like, there's a book for everybody, right? The first book, The Name of the Wind, I gobbled that up. That is the book that got me into reading. Like, my first fantasy book that I read as an adult, as a young adult. I loved all of it. And I couldn't wait to read the second one. I didn't read it until I had come home from an overseas mission trip. So I'd finished the first one, Name of the Wind, when I was overseas and tried to get into it. But I think adjusting to reverse culture shock after living in Asia for a few months kind of made it difficult for me to read consistently. So I read maybe about half of this one, and then I just couldn't finish it. I still have the book somewhere. It might be at my parents' house, and I'd like to get around to it, but because I let it go for so long, being like halfway through this book and then forgetting kind of what had happened and trying to jump back into it, I just put it aside for the time being. So those were the 5, my friends: Aurora Rising, Wizard's First Rule, Goblin Emperor, Best Served Cold, Wise Man's Fear. There's a theme. I mean, they're all fiction. 1 sci-fi, 4 fantasy. And again, I might get back to these at some point. You never know. Just, it wasn't something that I wanted to read for now. Curious to know, are there any books that you feel comfortable admitting that you didn't read? Maybe they're super popular. Maybe no one's ever heard of them. And are they books that you think you'd want to get around to reading at another time? Or are they permanently going on the did not finish shelf? Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining me today, my friends. So great to be here on the living room floor talking about books once again. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.